President Trump seems to misunderstand a fundamental part of the NATO alliance in a Fox News interview recorded after the news conference with Vladimir Putin.
Membership in NATO obligates the members to defend any other member that's attacked. So let's say Montenegro, which joined last year, is attacked. Why should my son go to Montenegro to defend it from attack? Why is that?
I understand what you're saying. I've asked the same question. You know, Montenegro is a tiny country with very strong people.
Yeah, I'm not against Montenegro or Albania.
No, by the way, they're very strong people. They're very aggressive people. They may get aggressive, and congratulations, you're in World War III. Now, I understand that, but that's the way it was set up.
Not really. That's not actually the way it was set up. Article 5 of NATO is a collective defense clause, meaning if a member country initiates a conflict, other NATO members are not obliged to defend them. And again, the only time that provision was ever invoked was after the 9/11 attacks, when the alliance came to the defense of the United States. But that mention of Montenegro is going to come up again, so remember it. Concern about President Trump accommodating Vladimir Putin has a lot to do with Russia's aggressive moves around the globe in the past decade. Back in 2007, Estonia removed a Soviet World War II monument. On the day Russia commemorated the end of that conflict, Estonia suffered a massive cyber attack on that tiny country's very heavily connected infrastructure. Servers went down, ATMs wouldn't function, bank accounts were blocked, much of the internet was rendered inaccessible. Okay, and Estonia is one of those countries that borders the new Russian Federation. In the Middle East, Russia has propped up Syrian dictator Bashar al-Assad in 2011, blocking UN involvement and directly entering the conflict in 2014. Here's Russia, here's Syria. In 2014, Russia aggressively moved to annex Ukraine's Crimean Peninsula, sparking international condemnation. We all know about this, and again, Ukraine shares a very big border with Russia. And in 2016, a group of Russian nationalists were accused of a planned assassination attempt on Montenegro's prime minister. The attack was reportedly organized to prevent that country, Montenegro, from, sorry, that's Russia, I'm sorry, Montenegro's right there, from joining NATO, something it ultimately did the following year. The Russian government denied involvement in the plot. And the same year, Russia began to interfere in the UK's Brexit referendum. Social media posts and fake Twitter accounts were used to sow discord and spread misinformation. Sound familiar? That was a tactic honed and deployed against the U.S. presidential election, where Russia's involvement is being documented in multiple indictments by the Justice Department. That was 2016. 2017, social influence campaigns were again used to attack the French presidential election, including a hack of then-candidate Emmanuel Macron's emails. Those efforts eventually failed. And late last year, Russian tankers were accused of transferring fuel to North Korean ships, supporting the regime despite the Russian government's pledges to support the U.S. sanctions against North Korea. And earlier this year, a former Russian spy and his daughter were poisoned by a dangerous nerve agent on British soil. The attack is believed to have been directed by the GRU, that's the same Russian group blamed for the election attacks. 2 British citizens later fell ill from the same nerve agent, and one of them died last week. Joining me now is former counterintelligence officer and author of The Plot to Hack America, Malcolm Nance, and Mother Jones Washington bureau chief David Corn. Guys, thanks for joining me. Yeah. I guess the first thing I want to get to is the very unusual thing that Donald Trump did yesterday afternoon about 3 p.m. Eastern, in which he, people say he corrected or he clarified his comments, but Malcolm, there was nothing in there that made anything clearer. The president said he misspoke. He said would as opposed to wouldn't. It doesn't make sense in the context of everything the president has done and said in Helsinki.
No, it doesn't make context, and let's just put this on its face. This is a lie. The president lied. He came out, saw that he was caught in his own supportive speak of Moscow. He attacked the United States intelligence in Helsinki multiple times, and then when confronted by his staff and the backlash in the United States, his staff came out and fabricated a lie. And then, as soon as he said it, he reversed even on that.
Yep.
So, that's what you're going to get with Donald Trump. And like one of the senators said today, wait 24 hours and let's see him backtrack on this.
David Corn, some of the president's supporters say that in the 2.5-hour meeting he had with Vladimir Putin, of which we have no record, he must have chided Vladimir Putin in that meeting. Any reason we should believe that?
There's no reason to believe anything at this point. I mean, it's like Marie Antoinette coming out and saying, I meant to say, let them not eat cake. I mean, it's just absurd. But there's an important question about the meeting. And I salute you for that great intro, because, you know, that shows that the attack in 2016 on our election was not meddling.
Correct.
It was an attack that's part of a strategic campaign that Putin has developed over the last couple of years to use asymmetrical warfare to weaken Western liberal democracies that can challenge him and expand his own influence. But at the meeting, the private meeting, my question is, we'll never see a transcript, my question would be, did Trump and Putin talk about how they would then discuss the Russian attack at the subsequent press conference? Because it probably came up, and if they did, and Trump said, I'm going to say this, and Putin said, I'm going to say that, that is colluding. That is collusion in favor of or to support the Russian disinformation campaign, the Russian cover-up, that this thing never happened. And that, to me, is mind-boggling, that you potentially have a president of the United States colluding with Putin to cover up an attack on the United States.
So it's interesting, Malcolm, that David talks about a strategic attack on Western democracies. You could look back at the last 10 days of the president's visit to Brussels and London and then Helsinki, his attacks on Justin Trudeau, his attacks on Theresa May, his attacks on Angela Merkel, and his attacks on NATO, calling our European allies a foe. And that could be a strategic attack on Western democracies. And Bret Stephens was here yesterday telling me he just doesn't think that Donald Trump believes in a free world.
He doesn't, and that's what the entire premise of my book, Plot to Destroy Democracy, is about. This is the great realignment of the world. That's what Helsinki heralded. I really think that what we saw on Monday was the beginning of the collapse of Western liberal democracy. The Atlantic Alliance, from the axis from Washington, D.C. to Europe, they are re-engineering this. And as David said, the Russians have figured out that they can harness free speech and social media to hack the mindset of the American public, and it is a Russian strategic doctrine to go after those mindsets and to convert them to where you can technically invade a country without actually invading with armed forces. That's what's happened here. Donald Trump is a believer in Moscow's worldview. One quick point. He mentioned Montenegro when talking to Fox News last night. And like you showed in your intro here, Montenegro had Russian intelligence officers from the GRU that were surveilled by NATO counterintelligence. They intended to kill everyone in the Montenegrin parliament, take over in a coup, and establish Serbs as the dominant force there, and then invite Russian military forces in to take over. That was supposed to happen 2 weeks after Donald Trump was elected president. And that would have established Russia's presence in the Adriatic Sea in Central Europe, along with all these other psychological warfare attacks they were doing.
And worth noting that Ukraine had been taking steps to make a stronger alliance with the West and NATO, and of course that also caused a threat. David, a lot of times Trump supporters will make an argument that the president is playing a chess game that you just don't understand. Any sense to that either?
I mean, I don't think it's a game that he understands. I mean, I do think I don't think there's strategy here. I think it's psychological. I think he has this affinity for Putin. It goes back to 2013. I documented this in the book I did with Michael Isikoff. He wanted to be best friends, his words, with Vladimir Putin, an autocratic thug who runs a regime in which dissidents and journalists are killed, who invades other countries, and then who later attacked America. He wants to be friends with him, and then he looks at Justin Trudeau, Angela Merkel, and he can't be bothered with these folks who want to treat Trump like an equal and want respect. So there's a strong psychological component here. I think Putin recognizes that and plays off that. But also, I don't think he believes in working with others. He doesn't believe, I think, in alliances and multilateralism. And, you know, listen, we can make criticisms about NATO and what its role in the world should be, and there can be a real policy argument about this. But that's not what Trump brings to the table here. It's about him and Putin ruling the world together.
Hey, MSNBC fans, thanks for checking out our YouTube channel. Subscribe by clicking on that button down there and click on any of the videos here. To watch the latest interviews and highlights, you can get more MSNBC for free every day with our newsletters. Just visit msnbc.com/newsletters to sign up now.